the line 16, second paragraph on the page, and we were talking about the special advantage of Rosh Hashanah, the day of the creation of Adam Rishon, versus Chafhei Elul, the day of the creation of the world. And before we explain the great advantage of the creation of Adam Rishon over the creation of the world, he wants to explain the unbelievable thing that the creation of the world is, the Chafei Be'elul, and then he say, and despite that, Adam Rishon's, the day of Adam Rishon's creation and what Adam brought to the table is so much greater. So first he started speaking about that the whole idea of Yesh Ma'ayin, everything being created from nothing, and that is something that is only by the power of Hashem's very essence. So therefore, on Chafei El was such a great and amazing time that it had this powerful revelation. Now he's going to go on more details in the Maila of the creation on that day, on Chafei El, etc. So again, line 16, fifth page of the copies, page test. In addition to the fact in the Bris Yesh Ma'ayin, that on the 25th of El was the idea of the creation of something from nothing. Hine gam b'negea like Yesh Gufa, also concerning the Yesh itself. What was created? Yesh by kama pratim pratim. The Yesh that was created from nothing has in it many details, and those details have further details. Just like we find that there's details of 10 utterances. The Eibusher didn't just create the world with one utterance, like Pirkei Avos says, that's it. No, he broke it down. So there's details in that, and there's 10 different mamoras. And then in all those Asara mamoras are included the details of all the creations, and the different combinations and mixing of letters through different switching of letters and exchanges of letters, al chilufim the chilufim, until changes of changes and switches of switches. Like explain that how is it possible to have so many varied creations if every single creation has in it a ha'ara revelation of the level of the Oyer Elokee that was said in the Asara Amaris. How is it that things that are not specifically said in the Asara Amaris have in it the divine energy of the Asara Amaris? It's because you can take the letters of the Asara Amaris and they can be combined in many different ways, and they can be exchanged for other letters and gematrias, etc., that eventually every single creation has some combination and some form of energy that originally came from the Asara Amaris. But the point over here is that it's not just that the Yesh was created, that this Yesh has in it many, many details, as we find in the Asara Amaris, the many details that were in the creation of the Yesh. There's another idea. He says in line 22 after the brackets, there was a distinct quality and advantage on the 25th of El. On the 25th of El was said the first utterance of the 10 utterances. In this case, he says not the actual Amira. Usually when we talk about the first Maimer, we talk about Bereshis Bara Lakim. Here he's referring to, he doesn't mean the first one of number 10, because if you count, there's only 9 times that it says Vayomer. That's why I have to say Bereshis, Nami Maimeru, that Bereshis is also. But of the times where Hashem actually said Vayomer, the first time it says Vayomer, the first one that Hashem said Vayomer is Vayomer Elakim Yihi Or Vahi Or. That Hashem said there should be light, and there was light. And the Rebbe is going to speak about, in addition to the mile of Bereshis Bara Elokim, that the whole entire Yesh was created with all of its details, the creation of light on the first day of creation, on the 25th of El, is an amazing power. So he says, this is the light that was created in the first day of creation, Shahaya Ur Nifla. It was a wondrous light. Loirak Bekamos, not just in quantity, how much light was given off, Ela Beikar Be'echas, but primarily in quality. Ad Shaya Adam Arishan Soifa by Misoifa El Matsoif until Adam Arishan would look via that light and through that light from one end of the world to the other. This is because qualitatively this was a different type of light than what we know light is. Top of page Yud Bekama Karnas Baruch, like it's explained in many places at length about how powerful and how awesome that light was. The Rebbe brings in the brackets to note Michiluki Ades and Medrash as Chazal, the difference of opinions in the Medrashim. If this light of the Eibishter only shone on the first day of creation, or it's shown until the fourth day where Hashem actually hung the luminaries in the heavens, and then like the luminaries took over instead of that original light. Regardless of when it stopped, still in all, not how long it lasted, but when was it created, this amazing light? It was the first day of creation, the 25th of El. So that's another advantage and quality of the 25th of El. Line 5, it continues after the brackets. Another idea that we find in the 25th of El, the 25th of El was also the special advantage and quality in the creation itself, that the creation is done in such a way of going by a chain descent from level to level in the whole Seder Ishtalshlus. What's the significance of that idea? It seems like, okay, Seder Ishtalshlus. What's the big deal? So it says, Shakavona Bezahi. The intention of Seder Ishtalshlus, the intention of descent from one level to another level. It's not to minimize and constrict the matter, heaven forbid. In other words, Hashem, when he minimized all of his revelations and he minimized all the hamshachas until he could finally create a physical world as we know it, was not because Chas v'Shalom Hashem was stingy with his revelation, that Hashem wanted to hold back and minimize what he was giving. Hashem didn't want to minimize anything, but rather the entire reason of this Seder Ishtalshlus, of descent from one level to another level, of the lessening of the light, till it should be able to, even the one below should be able to receive it. In other words, Hashem did us an amazing chesed. He did for us an unbelievable kindness that he was minimizing his oil. And when was this done? On the 25th of El. So he says, until it will be so minimized, so small, and so much be able to be received by the creations that it will become similar to what we say about food. That we say when a person eats food, it becomes like blood and flesh of his own flesh. How can that be in a spiritual sense? How can the spiritual light become joined with us, like similar to a food becomes joined with a person? That's only if the Eibishter limited his light. Therefore, the light has to be according to the capabilities and the vessels of the receivers. Also, this advantage about how Elikus was limiting itself and constricting itself so it should be able to be received by Nivraim. It was also in that light that was created on the first day. Even though we just now said that the light of the first day was an unbelievable light, it was totally different qualitatively, quantitatively than any light preceding it. Still in all, it's not, it still was tailored and came down according to the Nivraim. Where do we see this? So he says in line 13, like it's known the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov and the Mizritcher Magid in the booklet, in the pamphlet known as Rimzei Torah, but Bir Maimer Zoyar, in the explanation of what the Zoyar says, Betam HaChiluk Shebein Shar HaMamoris Shebehem Nemar Vayoyim Elokim Yihi Chulu Vayihi Chen Ma'ashe'enkim Bebrias HaOr Nemar Vayoyim Elokim Yihi Or Vayihi Or. The Zoyar points out an interesting difference. In all the other Ma'amoris, where Hashem said there should be whatever it is, Vayomer Elokim, Toitze Aretz Nefesh Chaya, whatever, then the pasuk concludes, or the whatever, how many psukim later concludes, and it was so, Vayichein. It doesn't say, and the animals came, and the firmament was in the, and the sky was lit up by the sun, the moon. No. All it says, Vayichein. Whatever Hashem said, so it was. Oir, it says, Vayomer Elokim Yihi Oir. Hashem said there should be light, and there was light. It doesn't say Vayichein. So the Mizritcher Magid explains and elaborates on what the Zohar talks about it. Line 18. After it says that Hashem said there should be light, the light that came down below in actuality, and there was light, came in a way of constriction and severity and limitation. In other words, that the reason why it says it twice, Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or, Vayihi Or, is to tell you that the Or that came about is not identical to the Or that started. The Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or and the Or that resulted were in a way almost like two different Ors. This was an Or without constriction, Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or, and Vayihi Or, it became a light that was able to be received by Nivroim. But the Rebbe right away points out, it wasn't contrary to Hashem's wishes, it was part of the intention. Line 21, Al Shtachlisa v'toichna v'inyono k'dei sh'atachten yuchol l'kabel zois b'ofen shel Or. The goal, the content, the idea behind it is, why was there this change between Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or and then it went through a constriction, Vayihi Or, a limited light? Because we wanted that the one below should be able to receive it, and it should be able to permeate it. So now, this was all about the unbelievable things that took place on Chafei Be'el. And despite that, Rosh Hashanah is greater. Line 23, Amnam Af Bishakol and Yalman Yiskarim Leif. Though all the matters that were mentioned earlier, that each one of the things we mentioned has its unbelievable Maila, the creation, Yeshma'ayin, and the details of Asar Amaris, and the light, etc., etc. It took place on the first day of creation, the 25th of El specifically. Because of that, even concerning Rosh Hashanah, this is the day of the beginning we're doing. Rosh Hashanah is called the beginning, even though we had all these great qualities on the first day. Rosh Hashanah, it says, it's a commemoration for the first day, the actual first day of creation. According to one of the explanations in what does it mean, Zikaron Yom Rishon, the intention is on the first day of the 6 days of creation. Why would Rosh Hashanah commemorate that if Rosh Hashanah is the greatest? Because the first day has some things that Rosh Hashanah doesn't even have. Shedafke Boy specifically. On the first day of creation, on the 25th of El, Yeshnam Kala and Yanam Niskarim La'el are all, to be found all the matters that we mentioned before. Mikol Makim, despite all those great things that we had before, God Lo Milus Rosh Hashanah. The day of Rosh Hashanah is great, is even greater. Yom B'rei Adam Rishon. It's the day of the creation of Adam Rishon. Because specifically then, when Adam Rishon was created, began the avodah down here below, and this was all brought in to be able to explain about why, if Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kולכם is talking about the day of Rosh Hashanah, Hayom Ze Hayom Tchilas Masecha. So if it's all about the great day of Rosh Hashanah, why don't we read Atem Nitzavim Hayom on Rosh Hashanah? So because of that we said, because before any type of Amshacha comes down, we need to do the preparation for it. The preparation for it is by reading in the Torah, Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kולכם. That is the preparation, what's going to take place on Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe pointed out, is all about the idea of the Avodas Hamata. And that's what makes Rosh Hashanah unique, even and greater, even than the creation on the first day, because the avodah of those down here below. So since that's the most, and that's the important message of Rosh Hashanah, the avodas hamata, we need to preface Rosh Hashanah with the avodas hamata by us reading Atem Nitzavim Hayom.